Let's get started with our afternoon keynotes. Please welcome to the stage John Furner, President and CEO of Walmart US. John will be interviewed by Melissa Repko, retail and consumer reporter at CNBC.
Well, thank you for joining us today,
Sure.
John. This is great. So many topics to cover, especially with this interesting environment we're in now with inflation and more. I'm going to start with that, really. I think that that's a topic on a lot of people's minds, is you've talked as a company that people are showing signs of budget consciousness and doing a lot of the typical behavior, trading down, skipping over discretionary. But I wanted to ask you, what's different this time?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having us and thanks for joining today. It's been just a remarkable environment the last 36 months, but the last 8 to 10 months have been really dynamic. And these changes that we've seen with consumer behavior really became noticeable and acute early this year. In February, we saw quite a few shifts happen at a pace that we haven't seen. And, in so many ways, when we look at what all is going on in the world, the consumer environment, and in retail, there are just a lot of factors that are all happening at the same time that we probably haven't seen come together in the way that they have. And certainly in the last few quarters, we've seen switching to smaller pack sizes. We've seen switching within protein categories. We've seen switching from things like wet dog food to dry dog food. And at least in the last few weeks, it seems like we are seeing some slight improvement in inflation. We have some categories now that we see disinflated or deflated versus last year, things like beef and in some cases poultry. And then there are categories in our portfolio in general merchandise where we do see some prices that have started to come down. It's, of course, too early to call how long this is going to continue. We still see food inflation mid-double digits. But there are some signs that there's some categories that have adjusted some.
One of the interesting results of budget-conscious customers is that Walmart's talked about attracting a higher income grocery shopper, so more households of $100,000 and more. What have you been doing not just to attract those customers, but retain them, particularly in the way you think about merchandise and other strategies?
Yeah, we could try to compare what's happening now back to what was going on in 2008, 2009. And the environment's quite different. At that point, there was high unemployment. Things were changing because of the mortgage crisis. And what's changing now is rapid price acceleration. That's been happening in the last 12 months. So in the recent quarter, we talked about the majority of our share gains were from customers who earn over $100,000 a year. So our business, when we take a step back and look, what we're trying to do is ensure that a family, whether you're time-starved, you're budget-starved, any situation you're in, that we're able to serve you in the way that you'd like to be served. So that includes store shopping, which certainly existed 14 years ago, but what's different now is we have a large pickup business, we have a home delivery business from stores, we have an in-home business where we are delivering all the way into and including inside the refrigerator in people's homes. So the flexibility that the organization has put together in the last few years, I think helps us with positioning over the long run. And we're in almost 5,000 communities, and as everyone in the room knows, each community has its own personality, its own style, and so our managers are really focused on serving their customers the way they want to be served.
You touched on one of the interesting new businesses that Walmart has, which some people may have experienced firsthand. You deliver directly to people's fridges with in-home. You also have a business that delivers Go Local. You have an advertising business, Walmart Connect. Why is Walmart leaning in to so many of these new businesses on top of just selling groceries?
Well, it's a video here of in-home. It's a really interesting offer. Years ago, would we have thought that we would have customers welcome us to come in to their home, deliver into the home in the refrigerator. And things like rideshare and other things have gotten us accustomed to letting people do things that perhaps they wouldn't have before. And as you can see, the associate comes in, they've got a camera on, so if you're not there, you can see what they see. And we try to do this in a really interesting, secure way. In the broader sense, though, of the question, there's so many things that we have been doing for customers that have accelerated really the last 4 to 5 years. And we've learned, quite clearly that in the supply chain work, that frequency of delivery, density of delivery, those are really important. And as those things have happened and happen at a high rate, they've enabled us to be able to offer those services to other companies, other retailers. And in the case of our advertising business, our data business, or Go Local, those are service areas that we use to take care of the Walmart store and online e-commerce business, but they're also available for others. And collectively, this increase in frequency and delivery helps the economic outlook for all of us.
To what extent do you see those businesses helping offset the costs of your expanding online grocery business?
Yes, certainly they do. First, our first priority is and always has been to gain trust with customers over the long term. And as I said, those things, they somewhat emerge, some on their own, some we're very intentional about, but they certainly can provide an offset for some of the costs and investment that we want to make in things like automation of the supply chain, and in the case of in-home, it's all delivered with electric vehicles. So, starting this at the time we did, give us some interesting positions to be able to help bring different technologies to scale, can really help the entire country and the world.
Another new business for you, or relatively new business, is Walmart Plus. And so I wanted to ask you, now that it's 2 years old, what have been some of the key learnings about how that influences people's grocery shopping behavior and other interactions with Walmart?
Well, the in-home business was the first to launch, and what we saw there is having a deeper connection with customers, helped customers see a path to us, just letting us do things for them, so taking time and friction away. And that led to then the offering of the Plus membership. And we launched this about 2 years ago, I think it's 2 years ago next month, with the benefit of unlimited deliveries to home. That was the first key benefit. Second, there was a fuel benefit that we've increased as this last year we saw inflation, we took the fuel benefit up. And then most recently, one of the things that we heard from our members quite frequently is they wanted a streaming benefit. And that's what led to the Paramount Plus benefit. But we see Plus members spending about double what other customers do, and having this relationship using data as the background, we can help them with being very intuitive and helping customers just take time and friction away. The mission of the company and our purpose has always been to save people money and they can live better. And the Save People Live Money has been our everyday low price philosophy for years, which builds trust with customers. And then having things like Walmart Plus and Walmart In-Home and using data to save them time does help them live better.
How does the average Walmart customer for grocery compare to the Walmart Plus member?
There's a bit of a journey. We see a lot of customers come through. We talk about our Walmart flywheel, which is really the architecture, how the business works. But from the customer standpoint, we have and historically have met a lot of our customers in the store. And that could be a grocery shop, it could be buying a birthday gift for someone, it may have been filling a prescription for a child that was sick. Mm-hmm. And we see customers move from in-store shopping, in many cases, then pickup would be the next step, then they start delivery, and there have been a lot of shifts, as everyone in this industry knows, the last couple of years, regarding how much delivery people want, how much pickup, the days and times of week, it's just changed so much. But they really kind of walk up what we think of a pyramid that starts with in-store shopping, and at the top of it, they move to Plus and then in-home shopping.
What patterns are you seeing on the online side? What are people doing now? I think a lot of people were adopting those services during the pandemic, but now with inflation, what is the mix between in-store delivery and curbside pickup, and what do people tend to buy when they choose those channels?
Last year, late in the back half, so let's call it Q3, Q4 of last year, we saw e-com softening a bit, which continued in the first quarter. And then we've seen strengthening again into the end of the second quarter. And I think a lot about the new normal. People ask me and have asked me now for 3 years, what is the new normal? And the answer usually is we're still trying to figure it out because the market's changing so much. But the patterns that have been going on for years, which was more and more people are shopping online and using stores as a fulfillment channel, shopping stores, I think that continues as it has been. As far as what they're buying, probably shifted the most in the first quarter this year. General merchandise was softer for us compared to what it was a year ago, and so the mix definitely shifted. It was pretty extreme right around February 24th when fuel prices started to surge. But then as we got into the summer and back to school, we saw a great tailgating season, a strong back to school. So I think things are leveling out. There's a lot of spending going on, a lot of customer demand still in the market. And we're still optimistic that customers in a strong position.
As unit sales soften in some cases, where are people still willing to spend on the food side? What patterns have you noticed where people still are splurging or at least still leaning in terms of volume?
Yeah, the situation, I think, is different for different customer groups. Of course, we could talk about the average, and what we want to try to do is click past the average, because it does look different depending on the situation people are in. But I'd say in general, people are celebrating holidays. Seasons are strong. People are still going to be together this fall. People are going to buy gifts for their kids and their loved ones. And these times of being able to get back together, just like this conference here, it's great to be with thousands of people we haven't seen in a while. In those seasonal events, people are still spending, and they're looking forward to times that they can be together.
Walmart is in the room with a lot of vendors talking about inflation. I'm sure these are conversations you have every single day. How are those conversations going, and what tools can you use to keep prices down?
Well, I think that first is respecting how much value there is in the data that we have collectively. A few years ago, it was quite obvious. I spent a few years living in Asia. It was quite obvious that data was becoming the new currency. And being able to be more predictive, intuitive, versus simply looking backwards at what happened yesterday or the day before on transactions has been really interesting. So, knowing customers' intent more completely with e-commerce and online shopping is a big advantage for our merchants. John Laney, who's here somewhere, who leads our grocery department, he and his team, I hear him all the time thinking about what's true intent, how does it match to the catalog of goods and services we have today, how might we amend that so that we can fulfill the customer's needs and then help get ahead of that to be able to be more predictive. So I see a lot of innovation, I see a lot of energy and curiosity around the way that we can get ahead of all the changes. What 2020 and 2021 dealt us in many ways were such extreme spikes in demand that we found ourselves a bit flat-footed trying to catch up with capital investments and trying to catch up with capacity. So using data in a way that helps us get ahead of demand, I think, is our biggest challenge going forward.
When a vendor comes to you about a price increase, walk me through that conversation. When do you say, okay, yes, we can raise the price? And as we do see things like protein, like you mentioned, poultry and beef are going down to some extent, how do you revisit those conversations so that shoppers see those prices and price savings passed on?
Yeah, we think a lot about our customers, and our mission for years has been to be a trustable, low price that people can expect a value on a basket of goods. And that doesn't mean you win on every item every day, but you win on the basket over time. And in any of those situations, first, we're super rational and we don't have all the information, but we have a lot. And we know that when commodities go up and fuel goes up and input costs go up, that's going to result in price changes, and we want to take those at the right time. And then for shareholders, we want to be balanced, ensure that we're passing the costs through that need to be passed through. But we also want to do that in a way that's respectful of the relationship that we want to protect with our customers. What happens from here, it'll be hard to say. Of course, we would love to see the economy remain strong. We'd love to see some prices come down that make some of those key food items more affordable for customers. So seeing some signs like beef and protein center plate items come down is encouraging.
On the supply chain side, what are you seeing? Where are you still finding pain points when it comes to grocery?
Really broadly, the supply chains have balanced out a bit more. We still do see some unpredictability that I think we're always looking for. Things like railroads being unstable for a few days. Of course, those throw curveballs at you. We fortunately were able to, the industry, work through that. There's still some tightness at the ports. So certainly some of the things that you're seeing in store now are probably earlier than what we would have expected. Most retailers went out and built in longer lead times because of the delays last year. So we were talking about it early. It felt like we saw Halloween's early in stores. We saw Christmas early in stores. That's all true because we brought it in early. So I think for the most part, we've been able to balance out some of the risks and the uncertainty, get ahead of it. And then there are just certain commodities that it may just be too early to tell yet what's going to happen. A lot of things happening around the world that could have effects. But I was in stores this morning here locally with two managers, and there are a few things that are tight, but for the most part, I still feel much better about the availability for customers in stores.
You mentioned behind stage that you rushed some holiday goods because you wanted to get ahead of any railway trouble that didn't materialize. But what other creative strategies have you added because you've kind of grown used to this new normal with the supply chain?
Yeah, we've been able to, and I'll go back to the middle of 2020, we've been able to think of our supply chain quite a bit differently because we had a separate e-commerce business from our store business. Those have been merged together. So this is really more about a customer strategy and looking at the demand that's out there in the market with data and then positioning inventory the right way so it can be fulfilled the most flexible way possible. So, I'd say in the last really 12 to 18 months, the way that we've thought about using networks like our regional network, our inland network, our induction points, sortation centers, we've become much more flexible with the way we move inventory. And the backups that we, of course, saw early this year caused you to think differently. Sometimes the world plays you a hand that you didn't want to play, but if it's the hand you're dealt, we think through the ways that we can be more creative. And so the team's just done, I think, a remarkable job from the situation they found themselves in the first quarter, up about 34% in inventory, and they're making progress, and they're using the network much differently to be able to fulfill things for customers.
We talked about Walmart Connect, Walmart Plus, some of these newer businesses, but another really interesting thing that Walmart's been doing is investing in food companies. One of those companies is Plenty, a vertical farming company. More recently, you invested in a ranching company for Angus beef. Can we expect to see more of these deals, and what's behind them?
Well, the biggest reason that we would make moves like that is we want to invest in surety of supply and quality for customers. And in both cases that you mentioned, we see innovative people that are trying to find new ways to deliver better products for prices that are what customers would expect. So we're always out thinking about innovation, what's next, what's coming. And in both of these cases, we're excited about the opportunity and the investments. And we think that over the long term, things like vertical farming or sustainable beef will be important not only for availability for customers, but we have a responsibility to help with sustainable product and ensure that our supply chains are running smoothly in the future.
Are there any other future of food ideas you've been thinking about a lot as a company or see investment opportunities in?
We're always looking. Innovation happens all the time. We like to say innovation happens at the speed of trust. So, the more that our teams are around each other and considering the needs of customers, there's always going to be a look. Hard to say what'll be next, but we're happy about the two investments that we've announced most recently.
How do you think about innovation at Walmart? Do you feel like the company is doing anything different to bring in new perspectives, tap startups? What is your approach or philosophy there?
Yeah, certainly. I think of innovation as part of our strategy, and then I think a big part of being able to innovate is how you structure your team and set yourself up. So, the addition of Seth Dallaire, who's here as the Chief Revenue Officer last year, is an important step. And then Seth and his team are here with Walmart Connect, and they're representing Go Local. We've got a product called Luminate for data. And, being intentional about the way you structure a business in order to support innovation is important. And in a lot of cases, we think, of course, we're a retailer first. We're merchants first. Our founder said that years and years ago, and that's still true today. Then the things that we've done to support the business, those are the areas where we've been able to figure out that there is a service here that could be available to others that can help everyone else win in a very innovative way. And so those are just a couple examples of how we've done that in the last couple of years.
One area that you've been innovating quite a bit is drones. I did want to touch on that because I think it's one of the interesting pilots you've been doing. Tell us more about that. I'm also curious, what are the top orders by drone?
Sure. There's actually a store here in town I was able to go to back in October of 20, and we were doing our first drone deliveries for COVID test kits here in Las Vegas. So it was an interesting experiment. We had to get approval to fly out of the parking lot and then across the street, and we worked our way to neighborhoods. But customers, this more and more around the world, they want immediacy of fulfillment. And we see more and more customers ordering what's for dinner tonight. And helping people think about what they have for dinner tonight is a big way you can remove friction in their lives, but a lot of times they just don't know. So the orders come in pretty late. The first neighborhood market we launched in, the number one item delivered with a drone was hamburger helper. So clearly for immediate consumption and for tonight. I'm sure that'll change over time. The hardware is getting better. It can deliver heavier packages. But it's a great way not only to fulfill a customer's needs, but it's far less energy intensive than traditional delivery methods. The percentage of the energy used to move the drone is far lower than the energy required to move a vehicle and a driver. So there are a lot of wins here, but it's early days and there's still a lot to work through in the space, but it's exciting just to see the team thinking about innovation. We're expanding to future markets with drones later this year. Just like in-home, will be available to close to 30 million homes by the end of the year. So these small pilots are now finding their way to the market.
Great. Well, we'll all have to look out for drones in our neighborhood. I know that list of locations keeps growing. Thank you again for your time today, John.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.